It was amazing.
Well, if you have 30 seconds, this meeting is going to be interesting. And one thing I hope to bring up is the non-policy initiatives that will change our future.
What do you mean?
Larry Lessig wrote the famous book Code. Code is law, where if you design the system a certain way, it forces people to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the US has been extraordinarily successful in designing the internet infrastructure to allow for openness, allow dissidents to speak up on the internet. There's a bunch of things, technical choices, that were made. And I'm just trying to scratch my head and scratch my brain and see if there's some examples of things that they would try to undo in the technical infrastructure. But send me a note if that sounds interesting.
Sounds interesting. The front and center on that is, is Doge attempting a rapid rewrite of Social Security code, which, is working. It's, COBOL, it's solid. It's like a truck.
Yeah.
B, you don't turn over a complex system without slow incremental test, parallel run. There are processes for replacing complex systems, and it looks like they're not going to do that.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, they're from the school of break everything, which is fine at a certain scale with certain
I don't know if that's fine.
certain boundaries, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's fine. I mean, in certain situations that kind of works, but in other situations, people get hurt very badly. So you can't just do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not having this as our conversation today, but
Yeah.
And Jerry,
topic for a longer discussion.
We should have it. Jerry, you should start us off.
Good. This is the OGM weekly call on Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Yesterday was Liberation Day, which is why we're having the conversation we were just having. But we are not on a topic call today. We are on a check-in call, which means that we will basically go around the room until everybody has checked in just once. Don't reply to one another during check-in. Mike, I know you'll need to drop off before the call is through. So if you want, collect up whatever you want to say and post it on the chat before you drop off. That would be just fine. But we want to avoid using chat during check-in, partly because one of the goals of this check-in format is to be more present for each other. And I can't imagine a time where that would be more useful, interesting, precious. I don't know what other words to give it, but I think that our presence and attention for one another is hugely important right now. And everybody in the room has done check-in before, so I will only use the chat if I need to explain that to a newbie coming into the room. I will now mute myself and see who would like to go first. And remember, pauses are good. Take your time. Don't reply to one another. No chat. And let's go.
A process question. We have Gil's note taker activated. Is that normal?
Gil's note taker is kosher, has been here for a long time, and okay. I have our note taker activated on Zoom as well.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something new that.
Nope. Gil's an old hand here. I've tried to figure out how to eliminate the note taker from view, but that doesn't seem to work. So
if you turn off non-video participants, it will eliminate it from view.
Yeah, but then it kills people who phone in as well, which
non-video participants
is kind of a bummer. Yeah. Sean and Rick, we are in check-in mode, which means no use of the chat. Everybody checks in only once. Don't reply to one another. Save the comments for each other for when we've finished all checking in once and go into conversation mode. And I am about to mute myself and see who would like to step in. Pauses and silence are welcome here. Nice hat, Mike.
What's the first word, Mike?
Canada.
Make Canada great. Yeah, Canada's already great.
I'll go first, taking off the hat. I've got one here, but it's in the other room, so I'm not going to get it. It's a red hat that came out of the California Climate Summit a few years ago, early in the first Trump term, that said, make climate cool again, which was a great thing. But walking from the Moscone Center to the BART, I almost got jumped several times, because who reads? Right? So check in, utter dismay One of the mantras of the last few months is, well, it can't get worse, can it? Of course it can. And we will see how much worse this is going to get. It's sort of staggering yesterday. The Vietnam's got hit, I think, with the 45% tariff. Somebody can talk about the mechanism by which they came up with the numbers, which is pretty wild and wacky, as so many things are. So on the macro level, I guess the main thing I'll say is that I think part of the shock and awe of this thing is that nobody, I don't think, imagined a theft so brazen. We knew they would do shit, but just, sort of staggering the scale and depth of it. This is not what we had in mind when we named the monthly calls that we run Living Between Worlds, but we are certainly in a different world now. We don't know where that goes. So there's that. I have been practicing the Serenity Prayer rigorously. The way my friend Chauncey phrased it is that, how you doing, Chauncey? Well, the things that are in my control are doing fine, and the things that are not in my control are not in my control. But that only goes so far. We have defaulted to comedy TV in the evening, which is something we haven't done for years. We just can't stand the news that much. In personal terms, this is hit in two very interesting ways. One is that we've been looking at downsizing, possibility of selling our home in Berkeley and getting something else somewhere else. And we've been hesitating and finally came to the decision a few weeks ago that that the financial uncertainty makes it ill-advised to make any financial moves. We have significant chunk of our income comes from Social Security, significant chunk of our healthcare comes from Medicare. If those things are wiped out, we're in a very, very different situation. And we decided just not to take on any change in financial structure because of that. And it's taken me a couple of weeks to settle into that decision, but yesterday completely clinched it for me. Just not going to do that. In professional terms, how this has showed up is I've got a keynote at the end of the month for an organization that is a major federal contractor. They were going to fly me in for a big event. They called up last month, said, no, we're not going to fly you in. It's going to be on Zoom with a smaller event. Their whole world is turned upside down. And so I have to reinvent what in the world I'm going to talk to them about, because they're going to think that sustainability is utterly irrelevant for the world they're facing now. It might be, because there's going to be no sustainability contracts from the feds, obviously. But I will talk about physics and fundamentals and what strategy means when certain things are in disarray and certain things have not changed at all. But I woke up to that challenge this morning, thinking about how to frame that in a way that's going to be productive and provocative in a useful way for them. And I am Gil, and I've spoken.
Jump in because I have limited time. I've called in a few minutes, 20, 15 minutes. Yeah, so I'm having some interesting conversations with people. I think, one of the best takeaways of this is that I think people are coming to a more concrete awareness of that it's not about left or right, it's about the tops versus bottoms, I think. And so, we see, more and more sort of like tops doing what tops will do to further their own interests, and saying that they're doing things for the bottom, but it's just becoming more and more obvious that it's not. And yeah, so it's I'm hoping that this whole bait and switch, I guess, is how it will be perceived by many. Many of us here knew it was garbage, but many people didn't, and they were hopeful that that this whole thing would shake up the duopoly and that we'd have some, you know, real populist. By that I mean for the people, by the people kind of stuff happening. And yeah, that's not really what's happening. I mean, God, you want to shake out grift? Why tackle USAID? Why not tackle the military directly? That's where the grift is at, But anyway, um, but anyway, so it's becoming clearer and clearer to more and more people who were hopeful that, maybe things would be shaken up a bit. And actually, I think they have been shaken up. And I think the Democratic Party, maybe is starting to realize that it's not actually a populist party, that it's, the people are realizing that the Democratic Party is not democratic in any way, and that the Republican Party is what it's always been. It's exactly what it's always been. So, which is kind of a party of wealth and big business. So, and they've never been shy about that, I think. I mean, there are some exceptions to that, and there are some ways that the, Republican Party, I think, has championed the will of people in certain ways. But, you just look at the deficit, the deficits over the different presidencies, and it's like, any debate it's clear after that. It's like, okay, well, Republicans steal money, they give it to the wealthy, they tax cuts for the wealthy, they spend more on military, which is another way of giving money to the wealthy, the big corporations, and and they stick it to the little guy in certain ways. And the Democrats do it a little bit less, but they also steal from the people through, different types of reforms, like with pharmaceutical industry and, a bunch of other things. So anyway, I'm hoping all of this will sort of shake up the duopoly and give us a little bit of a clearer insight into what we actually want, and not being like frogs in the kettle, kind of happily going along with garbage from our party, as long as it's our party. I think we need to just not go along with garbage, whether it's our party or the other party or any party. In fact, we should probably do away with parties. But anyway, yeah, that's what. Yeah, I'm happily chugging along with 4B, lots of new improvements. That's good. We're having an ethicist come to kind of explore open source versus closed source, nonprofit versus B Corp. Happy to have anybody with experience on that join. I've sent a link. And so we're going to have a couple of those discussions, and yeah, just excited about it, and struggling a bit also. I took on a great job working with one of my colleagues who works with Parkinson's. She's just such an ass kicker. She designed a scale that works better for symptoms rather than just tremor, which is not really indicative of morbidity, mortality with Parkinson's. And then she's a public health researcher and also a physician, and she did this giant 10-year survey of what people are doing with Parkinson's and how they're progressing. And then she says, look, do what the people who are not progressing, people are actually getting better, do what they're doing. And it's like diet and exercise and stuff. I'm like, why don't we do that with every disease, And and of course there are meds and et cetera that really help, but they don't modify disease progression. They just help with symptoms. And so there's a lot of diseases like that. And so I'm just helping her with her kind of becoming more of a thought leader, because she's not in the public sphere around that. And yeah, and so I'll make a little bit of extra money. I'll put that towards development, and yeah, I don't know. I'm okay. Those are my words. Ciao.
Well, I'll chime in. I'm going to have to leave in about 10 minutes, and I regret not being able to hear how other people are doing. Every person inside the Beltway here in Washington and a lot of people further out are just going crazy. I mean, the stress level is so high, and and every 10th person you talk to is directly impacted by some of the things that Doge is doing, or they have a family member or a neighbor who is. That said, this last few days has been very exciting, and I constantly am thanking whatever greater deity there is for the amazing amount of luck I've had in life. Yesterday was a particularly good example. I was able to go to the Information Technology Industry Council's annual Intersect conference. And it's really their attempt to look at the big picture of how technology is being used and how society has to respond to it in new and different ways. A lot of talk of artificial intelligence, unfortunately, and most of it was very fuzzy and redundant from things that we've all heard before. But some other very good issues that the Congress is dealing with. We had about 5 members of Congress, either senators like Amy Klobuchar, who gave a very useful and detailed talk about antitrust and the big tech companies. There's also Representative Obernolte. Some of you may know him. He's a Republican from California. I put him in the rational Republican category. He's actually he might be my favorite Republican and the current batch of people in the House. I have some other people I respect in the Senate. I'm biased. He went to Caltech, I went to Caltech, and he actually has earned a degree in artificial intelligence. And that came in handy when he and Ted Lieu, another California representative, Democrat, the two of them teamed up to write a very consequential and very well done and almost ignored report on what the House might do with regard to the risks and the benefits of AI. And so he was part of a panel, lots of good comments. And also it was a good chance for me to run into some very old friends. But I did run into 4 people who had just lost their job at the Department of Commerce or the Department of HHS, and one of my very favorite people has been doing data protection policy for DHS for more than 30 years. And boom, all that expertise gone. She's fortunate, she can retire full pension, but all the people who would have learned from her if she'd stayed around another 2 or 3 years, I'm there. The other exciting thing yesterday was I got to go to the National Academy of Sciences. Kip Thorne, the legendary cosmologist, was there, another Caltech product. And he was teaming up with an artist to try to illustrate what black holes are and wormholes are and what they could and might do. His probably greatest achievement is discovering a whole new branch of astronomy, gravity wave astronomy. And they detected the first gravity wave about 15 years ago with the LIGO, the Laser Interferometry Gravitational Observatory. And he talked about that. That was very exciting. And again, I'm just so lucky to have a world where I can go and experience all these new ideas and hear what's going on. And then to turn around and see that people making critical decisions for our country and our global economy are purposely, willfully ignorant. They're actually celebrating the fact that they're ignorant. And I think in some cases, knowing better, but knowing that if they throw out bullshit, everybody will be distracted by the errors in their calculations, and they can charge forward and do the quiet corruption that they're doing now. That's perhaps the thing that bothers me most, is that we not only have people who don't know what they should know, they spread what they know are lies. And this is seen as a virtue among tens of millions of their followers. Well, he doesn't understand anything. I don't understand anything. We're on the same team. So that's a very negative thing to end in. Actually, I will not end on a negative thing. I will end on the fact that we need to just do the simple little things that can help people around us. My wife was at the airport. She's flying to California right now. And she got through the 15-person line to the Starbucks to get a coffee. And the person behind the counter was totally frazzled. There's so many people demanding so many things, and everybody's so upset. And so, I mean, it's just a terrible environment to be in retail here in DC. It's also a terrible place to drive, since everybody is just so self-focused and getting dangerous to walk. But she finally got her coffee. This woman was clearly not American born. And she just impulsively gave her a $5 tip and said, "Thank you, carry on," you know, and she said that the woman was almost in tears. And I hope more people do that in the unexpected ways that can make a difference. Signing off. Thank you very much again for this group and for the support, which we're going to need more each week.
I just came back from our annual trip to Southern California, and then we had rented a large house with pool and hot tub and plays and games and all, to have my kids come in, my daughter with her 4 grandchildren, ages 1, 3, 5, and 7. The noise level was stunning. And my son, who just married last year, and they're both in their 30s. You know, my son-in-law is a high-income earner. He's an EVP for a jewelry company, and he voted for Trump. My daughter voted for Trump. He's Israeli, so maybe that, and there was clearly a reason that Trump is good for Israel behind that. And my son voted for Kamala, but we didn't talk about politics. We just had to leave that out, and had a super harmonious time. It was really enjoyable being with those little kids. But of course, I glimpsed into the news here and there, and I'm just thinking, what kind of a world are these little girls moving into, right? But we avoided conversations that would have that touched on these nerves that we have now, and just left it alone. So coming back to Bend, I've pulled together a group of nonprofits who are working to feed people who are at the base of pyramid economy. The local soup kitchen, they serve 20,000 meals a month to homeless people. I mean, anybody walking up really in need of a meal. The Meals on Wheels executive director has joined. They are totally freaked out because they're already losing money on this thing. The local food bank has joined. I got invited by the La Pine Bend School District catering director, so I'm touring their kitchen next week. They're feeding all the schools in Bend, so that's a lot of kids. I don't know the number, but it's tens of thousands of kids. And yeah, so the idea is that let's organize an event for the community so we can give each of you an opportunity to explain to the community what these changes mean to your organization. Now, what does this mean when they cut $1 billion funding for school meals and local sourcing programs? Now, what does that mean? So there's a local farmer also. She's very articulate. She's also part of the group. So we gave us enough time to think this through and not just whine and give bad news, but also offer some solutions. I mean, here's what we can do as a community. Here's how we could engage a farm to school, farm to food bank supply chain, and keep this money inside. And here's what's missing in the supply chain, and so on and so on. So that's going to be my focus for the next couple of months. Then I started. I'm meeting with a farmer who is very engaged, very progressive guy. He's ready to retire, and so he's managing a fairly large farm, but he has been experimenting for Kellogg and Nestle and other companies with differentiated crops and stimulating soil health and so on. And so he agreed to work with me on developing an AI chatbot that will be specialized to support a farm. So we have a kickoff session on Friday. So I already have one GPT developed that is linked in with the USDA programs that support regenerative farming and agriculture. So we'll see where that is going. But clearly, the farming community, can benefit, from having this AI expert which can assist in selecting crops that are suitable for your soil, for the type of soil you have, the local climate, local access to water and things like this, and then also access to market. So that will be intellectually challenging. So I'm really looking forward to working on this. Other than that, I mean, like all of us, I've spent a lot of time reading history books and Yuval Harari, and the dawn of time, basically, kind of literature. And when you look at where we are at, there is no hegemon ever who was able to force economic power moves on other countries without using military power, right? I mean, you can't force the Europeans to accept economically damaging rules without also having a lever behind that. And that's true for everybody, whether that's Asia, whether that's Japan or Korea or Vietnam and so on. So these countries are going to respond, and it's going to hurt us. And then we're going to think of ways to enforce, our will in maintaining, in implementing these economic steps. And then where does that lead? I mean, how is this going to work unless we are willing to put military behind it? And now, I mean, what if the Europeans decide to withdraw their deposits in US banks, if they stop buying US treasuries, right? So there's just so many options that other countries have to hurt us that would be devastating for our economy here. And then you wonder, so what are you going to do about this then, right? I mean, you're going to back off. And if you're not willing to back off, then what, right? So the danger that has been put in motion here is, I think, not fully understood yet. I mean, it's not really that we have to put this into historic context. We're basically a dying hegemon in that sense, right? I mean, our military is useless. I mean, you don't want to destroy what you want to conquer, right? I mean, Lao Tzu, basic things, don't destroy a country, you want to rule, I mean, so so then all the other methods, and this is why I started to really freak out a little bit when you see Elon Musk using Grok, his AI, to link up with Twitter, with X, because I think in his mind, the easy way to win a war is to manipulate the population with targeted messaging, and just achieve your way through this kind of manipulation. And all of this is just insane. And so, I mean, all the things that I can control is I can work in my local community. I can engage with the farming community. I can write a newsletter and explain what my thinking is, and that's about the extent of it. But boy, we're running into uncharted waters. But when I say uncharted waters, the thing is, they're not really uncharted, right? I mean, historically, these waters have been passed many, many times, and it always ended up in the shipwreck. It never gone well. And so why would you enter these waters is more, they're not uncharted, I should say. So anyway, yeah, so that's, it's a crazy time. And we have been living a very privileged life in an amazing time, right? I mean, I was born in 49, and the first decades of all our collective lives have been very blessed, very fortunate, and in our end peaceful. Not that the world was peaceful, but from our end, full of opportunity and good life, right? So now we're back to more historic anomalies.
Paul, thanks for joining our call. We are in a strange mode called check-in, which I don't think you've been part of before. We do this once a month on the first Thursday of the month, and we're each going once just to say kind of where we are without replying to other people in the check-in and without using the chat. Once we've all checked in, we'll go into our normal conversational mode. But if we're behaving a little oddly, that is why. But it's nice to see you.
I've been spending my time trying to not be distracted by the political weather, and instead articulate a fundable action plan for that that does a complicated set of communication, that achieves a complicated set of communications. And first, that's articulating how this moment is very clearly the time for a successor to the web and to documents is needed, and that successor essentially, as far as I can tell, needs to be something along the lines of a merged metacognition platform, or a set of standards and protocols for thinking, planning, and acting together. There are ways to accomplish that, and the time is very ripe. And this writing work that I'm doing then covers not only that, but also the view that, well, democracy was great. What's next? Because we're seeing the failure modes of mere democracy. It was a lovely program, and a magnificent response to kings. Democracy replaced kings, but democracy had only went so far. and it didn't go far enough. It wasn't the continuous, real-time, multi-stakeholder, pan-stakeholder, collective cognitive enterprise that we needed it to be. It was okay back then, old democracy, but going forward with the pace of change, with the vast range of existential challenges that we're now dealing with, given our technological power, and the fact that we are occupying the whole earth and we are requiring its full support for the breadth and complexity of our global society. There's very little wiggle room anymore. And so we need a successor to mere democracy. And I'm noticing that there's something great about this moment, and that's that it's clearer now than it has ever been before that technological successors and democratic successors are needed. So I think that a barrier to the appreciation, a barrier to enacting those successions is being removed. And that is that we are now all seeing that we're in a very, very complex situation that needs some evolution in how we do things. So that's where I'm at the moment, is trying to articulate these things in a way that is understandable to a non-technical audience. Over.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. So there is a new baby in my family, and it gets me thinking this kid can live to see the year 2100. Now, isn't that sobering? What are we giving to this kid for the year 2100? It changes perspectives. And my job has ended as of Friday, and I'm taking vacation. And then when I come back, I'm refocusing my priorities. I'm going to be doing volunteer projects that are personally meaningful to me, and learning technology to support where I really don't know yet what direction I'm going. It can lead in many different places. I'm really following my intuition here. One thing I'm studying now, I'm doing some research on the artifacts of Doug Engelbart's NLS system. And I've been able to dig up some things from BitSavers, some documents that are hard to find. Archive.org has some too, but I've been curious about this under the direction of Sam Hahn, who runs GCC, Global Collaboration Challenges. So his mission is to take forward the human aspects of Engelbart's ideas, because there's a lot of that hasn't really been looked at. Engelbart started the process of bootstrapping collective intelligence and gave us that vision. And his daughter is doing things with the Engelbart Institute to push that forward as well. But yeah, I mean, from the talk I'm hearing, we need something like that at this moment, that kind of vision of yeah, that type of collaboration and collective IQ to move forward in where that would benefit most of humanity. Because that was an epiphany he had when he was thinking about his goals. He said, okay, I'm married, I have kids, where am I going with my life? At age 25, he's thinking this, and he says, well, something popped in his head. What can I do with my life? And he calculated the number of minutes he has left to do something. And said, well, hey, how about if I set a goal to do something that would advance humanity or help the most people? And that gave him that vision that he pursued. So, like my technical skills, I'm going to look at what has not yet been implemented from NLS and how I can create educational materials that demonstrate the productivity features that were there for anyone who wants to think about that. Why can't we do like the collapsing outlines and show one line of every document, and the deep linking? Why can't we link so deeply into documents? So yeah, I think it's possible to like bring these to the surface again. So we'll see where it goes, but thank you for holding your space.
Well, I was very triggered Jerry, by your phrasing of the invitation for today's session, seeing where we are at this curious moment in history. And it is a very curious moment. And I think I'm going to say a number of things which resonate with or echo things I've heard so far. The first thing I thought that I would say today is that I'm trying to convert a very deep sense of loss into a sense of something gained. I feel I have lost so much of the ideas I believed in growing up where I did and when I did in New York in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, feeling that democracy, although it was not perfect, was reasonably successful, that there were systems that protect the weak, that we are free to become whatever we want in safe places in the world, that the world was a reasonably safe place, that the world would be at peace, that there were lots of good people in the world. Yeah, so I've trying as hard as I can to process things I feel I've lost and discover the interesting opportunities in the classic sense of may you live in interesting times. We absolutely live in interesting times. As Klaus said earlier on, it's important to understand the historic context, and I've been trying to understand the historic context. It was a privilege and a blessing to be alive in 80 years of reasonable peace in the Western world, and understanding that what's happening now is not new. There have always been robber barons and oligarchs and aristocrats and emperors and religious institutions who are doing exactly the same things that seem to be happening in Trump's America, but to a lesser extent in almost all European countries. So it's something where America is the forerunner, but European countries seem to be running as fast as they can to catch up. But maybe one of the opportunities is that after several hundred wake-up calls, Europe is actually starting to wake up and develop its own AI and technology industries and using the humanist values that have been championed in the last 80 years here in Europe and in the European Union. Never waste a good crisis, someone said. So if things are going to be torn down, as things are being torn down in the United States, then there's opportunities to not reinvent the wheel, not optimize systems which there were before, but to totally reimagine what a good society should be, what's important in life, what's important for humans, what's important for the planet, what's important for non-human intelligence of all kinds. On a less personal note, more professional, I became a member of the Imaginary Institute. Was set up about 6 weeks ago as a free thinking laboratory, a meeting place for artists and scientists and philosophers and other creative people to think about how imagination and more imagination can enrich the world and can be used to to co-create solutions or address issues where non-imaginative solutions don't seem to work. We meet every month for 2 days online and 2 days face-to-face in Europe. I've been to several online sessions, and in a couple of weeks I'll be going to Brussels for 2 days of meeting people. What's interesting about this organization is that it's full of younger people, and I'm born in 1947, and most of the people I hang out with in the physical world or online are in their late 60s or early 70s. So I'll have a chance to spend 2 days with younger people, a lot of them being artists of all different kinds. And I've proposed a workshop that I can run when we're in Brussels. It's about using collective imagination to co-create an intergenerational pact for 2035, a kind of new societal contract in which the 6 living generations of humans and perhaps taking into account non-human intelligences, whether they are forests or fungi or silicon intelligence, what we can promise each other, what we want to mean for each other as a first step to getting seemingly impossible things done. We've got to have prototypes, how to do these things. Well, there's a lot more going on in my life, but I'll leave it for now and look forward to hear what other people have to say.
The following pause is completely intentional.
I guess I'll talk here.
Paul,
Yeah.
I apologize. What I meant was I'm taking us into silence for a little bit,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll pick up right after. And I'm looking forward to your checking in, but I'm actually taking us into quiet for just a moment. Thanks. And I'm torn right now. Paul, why don't I invite you to check in since you're not normally in our group, and I'd love to hear what you have to say, and then I'll go after you. So I'm going to bump you up the queue in some sense, and go right ahead and check in.
So for me, the world is obviously giving us lots of feedback that we're on the wrong path, that the direction we're going is not sustainable. So that's just okay. That's what we're dealing with. We're going to the hands-off rallies on Saturday, and yesterday I took the junior high kids out on a project we call Staying Found, where we have them go hiking cross country off through some public land, and then they need to navigate their way back to the starting point. And as we were out there watching the kids, just watching the kids respond to being in really wild nature and thinking for themselves, it gives me great optimism and hope. I'm not so much interested in democracy as I'm the paradigm that I'm trying to work on. I call it commons culture. That it's a civilization that's based on the notion of the commons, and the commons is everything that life has created: soil and the oxygenated atmosphere and just all the things that makes life possible. And it's been created by life, and we're life, and we need to step up and use our gifts to nourish the commons, whereas right now we're stuck in this really weird paradigm that rewards people for harvesting the commons faster than it can be created. And so that's what I'm working on, trying to do that.
Paul, thank you. And I'm really glad I asked you to step in front of me, because the way I was going to start was by saying that I feel like I'm aiming somewhere in the middle of what everybody's said so far. and I'm only going to describe it kind of in broad brush strokes, I think, but I'm trying to aim into, I'm very aware that shit and chaos is loose on the land right now, and it's not good. I keep looking for the chaos causers' better plan that might actually do things better. And I think their intention is, let's shut everything down and then replace it with AI-based systems that'll be much more efficient, and look how great everybody's going to be grateful because we got rid of all those costs and now everything runs in a smooth AI world. And I don't actually see that materializing. I don't even see their intentions to do that being manifest in any way. I would be curious and open to see if that's doable, but boy, the people being hurt in the meantime, I don't like. And then the progressive side, I think, is they are deer in the headlights. There are some people doing things like Cory Booker's filibuster. I'm so glad he took Strom Thurmond off the record books. That was a really welcome shift. But I listened in on parts of what Cory was saying, and I'm like, some of this is weak sauce. It's not. I think progressives don't have a plan. So when I say I'm aiming somewhere in the middle, I'm trying to step aside from the political circus and just say, how might we help humans live better together? And what that will spin out into implications for democracy. It'll spin out into implications for design and planning. It'll spin out into other kinds of things. But just aiming positively in the middle, because I think that people are desperate for positive things they might do with one another to make their world better. And I don't see anybody giving them that. I think that Trump won because he promised to destroy a system that wasn't working for them, a task he is undertaking with joy and grim determination. It's like crazy. It's really insane. But I don't see that the other side understands at all, how to create a productive society that has high trust, high connectivity, that has abundance, the new book, as I haven't read Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's book Abundance, but I'm not sure I like their thesis about abundance, because they're just basically saying, hey, we have the technology and economics to make a lot of stuff. Let's just make a lot of stuff and make abundance. And I'm like, that's not what I think abundance is. I think abundance is about, as Paul just said, minding the commons, because commons well tended create incredible abundance and fix all the stuff around them. Paul, from your early videos, I've got this idea of sort of upward spiral, and the notion that there's this beneficial loop that creates when you use the correct principles, like going upstream to solve the problem as high on the stream as you can, et cetera, that good things then come out of the whole system, and that it doesn't take a lot of coaching to get individuals to be doing that together. And all of that requires something maybe mystical, which is a shift in perspective on one another. We have to start, and the word I've been using a bit is resacralizing people and the planet. And I don't mean here that organized religion should come in and take over. I mean here that we should see one another and the little fragile marble we live on as sacred, and we might then change our behaviors. I don't think that's like a giant leap for mankind. I think that's a subtle shift that would lead us toward looking out and reaching out to each other to work better. So I'm reorienting all the stuff that I'm doing to feed that. And you all will get a couple emails in the next little bit trying to sort of figure that out and asking for help in doing so. But I'm oddly optimistic, because in moments of brokenness and moments when things are shattered, there are lots of opportunities to put things back together in a new way. I had a great idea, and I was like, oh, we should call this the Kintsugi Project. Kintsugi is a Japanese art form where you take broken pottery and you mend it again with gold, and it looks really beautiful, and the mended piece is more special than the piece before breaking, except there's like 5 other people who had that idea over the years, and there are many different Kintsugi projects out there. So this did not seem like a clever new URL to get, so I did not do that. But I think Kintsugi is a nice analogy or metaphor for what's going on right now. Sorry for the long check-in, but thank you. I am complete.
So first, I was upset that you put Paul ahead of me and yourself. And then I'm grateful that you did. So the last few weeks, I've really doubled down on the Serving Life book, which speaks exactly to what you and Paul just talked about. Putting life ahead of everything, and recognizing life not as the little bits and pieces, but as the whole, the evolving, and understanding how important that one process of life is to everything we do, and not just something that we consider as nature outside of ourselves. And I think it's incredible when you think about the fact that we can somehow, as humanity, place ourselves outside of the very thing that gives us life. It's just incredible how we've been able to do that, and then to try to dominate the very thing that we are. It's just, so that work continues. I'm feeling very hopeful that it will mean something. I'm feeling that I would love contributions. We're looking for case studies from people like ourselves, like you. The intention is to write the booklet as a community, not by any one set of individuals, and as an open neo book, meaning that we will republish it in different communities and different languages, and that the intent is to have a living book, not just living in the creation, but living in the reproduction and the addition to and the expansion of. So to your point, Jerry, I'll be reaching out for help with that and for feedback. It's still early stages. It's still a bit rough. Not a bit rough. It's still very rough, but I think it's a good time to talk about it. The other thing I wanted to share is I haven't been here for a while, and a couple of weeks ago I was at the Atmosphere Conference, which is the technology behind Blue Sky, which is the AT protocol. Excuse me. And they call that ecosystem of the technology of atmosphere, the atmosphere. Canadian guy, Jerry, you know who put it on. So I told Laura as we were going up there, because we've got a daughter up in Washington, and so we thought, oh, let's go spend some time with her, do the conference. It's a good getaway. And I told her, I said, I might join you the rest of the weekend after the morning session if it doesn't bode so well. It's the first time for a very, very new community and a very new technology. So, sometimes those conferences are a hit and sometimes they're a bust. And it started with Blaine Cook. I don't know if you guys know who Blaine Cook is. That was a great start. It was really sort of a connection to the past of open source and recognizing the commons and connecting to where we need to be with technology. Jay Graber, the CEO, it was not put on by Blue Sky, but Jay was there and a bunch of her team were there. I love the fact that she wore the shirt. I don't know if you guys have seen this. So not only did she wear the shirt, her talk was basically, let's kick some fucking ass. We've got to stop this bullshit. And she was pretty direct about it. I'm being a bit coarse. She was a little less coarse, but she was definitely up for the task of saying that we're not playing games here anymore. We need to really do this. So that was very encouraging. And on the second day, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Erin Kassane. She wrote a bit for The Atlantic. She's a researcher. She's doing a lot of offline projects. Offline meaning not directly being published, but working behind the scenes in a number of research projects. And this is where it connected with why I was there. So the reason I was there was, first of all, because Jerry had mentioned the fact that Atmosphere was popping up a few months ago. And two, because we've been working on sort of a sister project to NeoBooks, our protocols. And we've been looking at the Atmosphere as a place to develop our protocols platform. And that was all I was looking for, was a technological sort of alignment with what we're doing. And then when Erin Kassane started talking, I thought, oh, I got so much more than this. Because what Erin first said was, this is wonderful that we are developing an open, distributed technological protocol that starts to put us in the right place. Individual DIDs, distributed IDs, stores, data stores that are personal, that people can move around, that they can own, that they can control. Wonderful. The fact that we can develop our own schemas as products and then have those schemas blend between different products. Amazing. But what we need more importantly are open social protocols. And that's what we're working on. And that's exactly why we were there. So that was just the fact that the community is starting to see what we're talking about felt very encouraging. She then said, we also need organizations that are, her word, she used the word vernacular, organizations that are vernacular organizations. And what she meant by that was she took it from the use of the word in architecture, local, meeting the needs of the local people, serving the community, communal, commons, connected, and building organizations that are of that ilk. Again, write down our street as we're working on collaboratives through this process. So it's been a good couple of weeks, and I've been trying very, very hard not to listen to all the other bullshit and just focus on what we need to do. Thank you. Of course, as I say that, I've got the ticker on an open window just to see what the market's doing.
Well, I can chime in. Last week, I just popped in quickly because I was on Venable Island, come back, and great downtime with the family for 2 weeks. And while I was there, so much, it's such a lovely spot, but the shells it's probably the best place in the United States for shells. And I collected a lot of shells. When I got back to work, I gave each staff member a big shell, the large ones that were incredible, just incredible just to look at. And everybody was just, oh, that looks really cool. So it was nice to bring a little token back. And last week, I think I mentioned that I did my first prototype testing on an indivisible call, and it was a bit clunky, because I never worked with these people before. The guy who I was working with didn't know the full function of Zoom, and I had to, help him say, we've got to be able to do this and this. Unfortunately, it came together okay. The outcome of it, I won't go into the details, but the outcome of it was they said, well, let's do it next week. So I wasn't, that's what I was hoping for, but I didn't, expect them to come up with it. So it was a bit late in promotion, and they sent out a blast on Sunday, and, got like 150 registrants. There were about 70 odd people who actually, who responded, say they were going to come, but about 75 people actually said they would come. In the end, there was about 60 people, which I thought was unbelievable. So I hosted one last night, and it was on equity meta governance, and we set up small groups, 15 minutes each, where people were broken into triads, and they were given a definition of equity and equity meta governance, and just simply asked, what do these definitions mean to you? Because if you don't have a common understanding of it, then, or at least know where your differences are, then it's very difficult to try and co-create a fair, free, flourishing future on a regenerating planet for the benefit of all, which is a theme, actually, I've heard resonate many times through different people's, chats today. And as that was going, I was thinking, why not get an AI summary of everybody's contributions and ask it, where are we resonating? And try and identify what are the themes that resonate or has synchronicity across what people are doing from different perspectives. Anyway, the second part of it, the 15-minute thing, was actually asking people to share a story. And again, I had 3 people in the main room, and people broke into just small groups. And the 3 people I had in the open space, one was the organizer, the other one was a co-organizer, and then there was a black lawyer from Chicago. This was a Chicago group, incredibly sophisticated, and she was talking about white supremacy, her experience of it, and how she had a white Lutheran minister who was able to help her, develop as a person. She regarded him as one of her major influencers in developing a sense of equity, and she got into law and focused on equity. Stories were unbelievable. Anyway, the long and short of it was, we asked people, do you want us to do this again? And they said yes, and we asked them whether weekly or monthly. And the majority of people said weekly. So I don't know where it's going to go yet, but we're going to have plenty of stories of biped. And it was a word I used. And this was a pretty sharp group of people. And people started, Googling the word. And they said, what does biped stand for? And I said, well, it's biases, isms, prejudices, inequities, and discriminations, which are all violations of human rights. So anyway, I feel quite upbeat about where it's going, and what I'm trying to do is to create a learning platform with this local chapter, and then saying I'm interested in exponential opportunities and training people how to do it. So the resources are free online. I'm using the neo-learning principles of rather than a neo book, because I'm finding that with Perplexity AI, some of the searches I can do and the outputs that you can get with deep research and very targeted questions. And one of the questions that came up, there were a lot of people on the call who are concerned about Trump signing in the 1807 Insurrection Act and how it's going to be it's 3. I don't know all the details of it, but they said April 20th is when it can become operational, if I understood them correctly. I have to go back and look at it. But based upon that unresolved question, I then posed a question based upon that, and then put it into Perplexity AI and asked it to respond to it with different prompts. And it came back with a pretty good response. So it's a way of creating learning communities. Not that it's not the answer, but it creates a very enriched environment to look at things from different perspectives. So I'm feeling somewhat upbeat about its potential, and I've got other ideas, but I've said enough about it, and I'm Rick, and I'm done speaking.
We haven't, excuse me, we haven't all quite checked in yet, so we're not not out of check-in mode. We have, I think, John on the iPhone and Ken. You're welcome to pass, but also if you'd like to go.
I'm in listening mode.
Just looking for a place to pull over here.
You're
So
in driving
I got a
mode.
short one. By the way, this is what I only been with you here for about 15 minutes, but it's been inspiring just to hear the scope of inquiries and projects and pursuits that are going on. I'll just mention one, and it's at the very beginning, so it's too soon to say whether it's going to have any traction or not. There is this thing in this organization in Marin. It's called the Portal. Some of you may have heard about it. I joined mainly because, among other things, if you became a member, you could get access to hyperbaric oxygen treatments at a sharply discounted price. And I said, okay, I read about that. I think that's a good idea. Let's do it. It's very eclectic for Marin. I mean, Marin is pretty eclectic, but I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on yoga. There's a lot of emphasis on dance. There's a lot of emphasis on music. There's a lot of emphasis on biohacking. You wouldn't necessarily put the conversations that we're having this morning on that list, but they did have a meeting last week, and it was called Impact Circles. And they got about 45 people to sign up, and they divided it up into topics, including was climate, one of them was democracy, one of them was women's issues. There were a couple of others. So I went right for the democracy, and the discussion was pretty interesting. They have a plan, which is to ask people to commit to 6 meetings every other week for a couple of months, and then to have some kind of summary activity where all the groups would come together. So I'm waiting to hear the person who led the democracy group was very good, and it did a great job. But he unfortunately says that he's not available to lead the 6 sessions, and he asked me and actually Kim Police, who was also there, to think about whether we could, and we did. And Kim said, "I can't. I'm overcommitted." So I may wind up running the impact group subgroup at the Portal, and that'll certainly be a lot of fun and very interesting. And there's some territory that people have already covered here in their conversations that this group doesn't know about. The impact group doesn't know about, but maybe not. I mean, I haven't didn't get a chance to probe the group on how do you use anything like an LLM to ask questions about public engagement and so on and so forth. So that's a conversation we need to have, and it's not clear what the next steps are, but it's just at the beginning. I hope it takes off. I hope I'm not locked into the idea that I need to lead it, but I'm willing to do it if that's what they would like. And if more people step forward, that's great also. So I would say stay tuned. We'll check in the future and let you know how it develops.
Love that, John. Thank you. Thanks for checking in.
Okay.
Rick, when you asked that question, I asked the assistant that is with us here that I turned on, the AI assistant, oops, let's see if we can, there we go. Pardon the renumbering, it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, but this is what the AI assistant thinks our common themes have been. in this conversation. And then Paul Crafell mentioned earlier about commons culture, and I happen to have in my brain a post he did. Let's see, when did I add this? September of 24, called Toward a Commons Culture, for sharing. And anybody that, so chat is now free and open. Please post away whatever you'd like to share or any comments or whatnot. And we have just 10 minutes worth of conversation left, but thank you for those really interesting and useful check-ins.
And just thanks
Okay.
for posting that Towards a Commons Culture post. I just want to encourage people, if you're not following Paul, go sign up. He writes beautifully, he writes provocatively, and he writes things that will touch your heart and open your mind.
So whoever would like to step in, go right ahead. Floor is open for 10. Go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, I'll step on what Ken said. I'm very much looking forward to things that touch my heart and open my mind these days. And will touch my mind and open my heart. So thank you for that. The commons culture is a powerful factor right now. And one of the mysteries for me, and Paul, I will go look at your stuff because maybe you addressed it, is the question of commons and scale. And you know, the relationship of the possibility of commons with the face-to-faceness of human relations. And what does it look like when we go from 15 to 150, 2.5 million to, you know, 15 billion people? How does that play? Which I think is one of the aspects of the mess that we're in now. So I look forward to diving in on that. I want to follow up on a bunch of things with people individually. Obviously, no time to do that now. So thank you, everybody, for what you've shared. It's been very rich and stimulating conversation. Couple of things. I have lots of thoughts. Let me just try to pick just a couple to say. One is that, Jerry, I was really struck when you said nobody's doing anything about, because it's an expression I've heard a lot lately. And I've engaged people on it, and often what it means is I haven't found anything like that, or the algorithm isn't feeding me anything like that. But in fact, there's an enormous amount of creative response from the progressive left, you know, cultural whatever that we all loosely affiliate with, ranging from, you know, like it or not, the stuff that Kevin and his crew are doing in Swannanoa to the stuff that Bernie and Ro Khanna are doing on the political level. You know, I just yesterday somebody said, you know, a person they've been following as an inspiring leader for months. They said they're not posting anything anymore, and I searched online and found a ton of stuff they're posting. So I'm wary. Yellow flag on. Nobody's doing anything. That's an invitation for curiosity. And by the way, speaking of curiosity, Pete, who's not here this morning, is posting a beautiful series of stuff on Substack as AI homework, kind of an introduction to richer and more productive interactions with AI. It's lovely and juicy and full of stuff, even for people who know a lot. So I commend that. And then very quickly on the matter of democracy, in questions of democracy and authoritarianism, I always go to Ross Ashby's law of requisite variety. And for me, I think the deep problem with authoritarianism is that it lacks requisite variety. It depends on a very small number of people making major decisions, often, as we see in this case, without significant impact. I posted to some MAGA friends a couple of days ago. Yes, I do have some, not many. Asked if somebody could explain to me the policy or strategy logic of decimating public health agency functionality and losing fine-grained view of health data. And no doubt there's a lot of waste to be cut, but why with a meat axe rather than a boning knife? 2 days later, no response from those folks. I'm going to give them another day and then kind of poke gently. So, you know, Hank, I appreciate what you said that we're living in, I don't know if it's 80 years, maybe 60 years of an anomalous time in human history of peace and progress and growing inclusion. And I've lived a life that has kind of taken that as normal, and I'm realizing, no, it's a cyclical, and we're in a cyclical swing. But the level of damage we'll take on will take a very long time to recover from. So there's that. And the question that I'm always asking as I watch the depredations of the month gang is who benefits? And it's not chaos. There's a strategy here. There's a financial play here. It's systematic, and I'm happy to talk about that more with anybody at another time. But I'm brought back by what a bunch of you said to the question that I learned in my first week as CSO of Palo Alto from Pam Anton, who was our outgoing assistant city manager. And in the midst of a horribly messy executive committee meeting where things were stuck and contentious and just not moving, she did this move I learned was her classic move. She said, "What might be possible here?" And it just shifted the mood in the room. It dissolved the tension. It was no longer a matter of defending a position or saying that you're wrong, but just, it opened up curiosity in a group. And so for me, that's kind of the touchstone in these times of what might be possible here, what might be possible now. So thank you all for stirring the pot together.
Thanks, Gil. Rick, let me just reply briefly to to Gil before passing to you. I don't remember exactly what I kind of said, and what I meant to say and miscommunicated was that I'm not seeing sufficiently different and satisfying responses to the current situation from anybody on the progressive side. I have a massive collection of responses, and I know people are doing shit, and I have an older list of communities trying to fix global problems. There's a bunch of different things I've been collecting. I know that people are active on the ground. I'm just not happy with what I'm seeing very often. And every now and then something resonates and I'm like, oh, more of this. But those are too scarce and not very well known. That's kind of what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does, and too scarce and well known and not well known is part of the not here is what comes to us, what we're finding out of the soup with the algorithms of both the AIs and the media people are feeding us. But you just made a better to me a better question, which is not like nobody's doing anything, but the things that you're seeing being done aren't adequate from your perspective to deal with what you're trying. That is a much richer for me and more engageable kind of statement. So I like that.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Rick out in the jungles. Come in, please. Rick in the forest. There you are.
Here we go. Yeah,
Excellent.
I want to bring up a learning design issue. And there's a lot of good. See, this is not my primary. I don't have a primary group that I go to, and so I sort of go across different groups to learn how different groups are working. And one thought I had just from today's conversation is that along with the AI summary and with the audio recording that you have, imagine it, instead of putting everything in the chat, that you put it directly into a Substack article. So that it is an open global mindset. And it means that when people, it's an easier place to access things, make it public so that, we make our interconnections public and you can invite other people into it. Anyway, it's just an idea because unless we're building these iterative feedback loops about ideas that emerge, and then do they get a little extra legs, or some of the ideas we've heard, do they get connected in some way? Otherwise, it's it's just brownie in motion, and we need to learn how to galvanize things to create a moral empowerment network. So that we can actually based on virtues, ethics, so that we can actually create systems that have some integrity. So this is a plea for how can we take all this good work and turn it into impact?
Thanks, Rick. When you say post these calls into Substack, do you just mean?
Well, no, I mean the YouTube. So for example, you set it up, you make an announcement on Substack, we're going to be meeting here. You have a little outline. Once the event has passed, then you can take YouTube, put it in there, put in the AI summary and the chat so that it's a bookmark for an event. So if people didn't come to it and they're saying, oh, I wonder what happened there, I'll just read the AI summary. Oh, that AI summary looks great. I want to listen to what these guys are up to. So that I've become much more convinced that we have to have a counterculture of social media to take on the marketing cult of mass indoctrination. And unless we take charge of our own inquiry journalism, so to speak, then we're gonna remain victims of the propaganda machines.
So Rick, I have all the documents that you just mentioned. I just post them all to our Mattermost, which is an open, but
Yeah.
it's our platform. I'm not putting it on Substack, which is an interesting thought, which would create extra labor, but wouldn't be that hard. So thank you for the suggestion. It's good.
Yeah, well, the reason for that, if you want to be more open, I mean, I don't go to Matter, it's just that I've got so many things to go to, so I selectively go to things. I'm on different, platforms and whatever. I mean, this is of my own doing, but for people who are, say, for the people who are on the fringes of your organization, you'd be providing a service to them. People who are on the inside and are, stay within that community, are active participants, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you're actually going to try aim for influence or external impact, I think one needs to be much more purposeful about how to make this public. It's in the open commons, right?
Yep. Thank you. Good suggestion. I appreciate it. We're a little bit over time, but go ahead, Klaus, then Sean, and I'm hoping Ken might have a poem.
Yeah, Gene Bellinger asked an interesting question here, and I just pumped it into the AI and had it give us a response here, which I posted in a link up there. Gil, that's the link that I just put in. So what Gene was asking is, they say that all magic is misdirection. So might it be appropriate to investigate what's currently happening behind the misdirection? To quote Sun Tzu from The Art of War, while all can see the tactics by which the battle is won, none can see the strategy by which the enemy is defeated. So I put that in, and the AI comes up with, and I should say, I didn't disclose this in here, but I also asked the AI to respond within the frame of Project 2025. And so the response is biased by that comment. And so you can see that now it's pretty clear who are the winners and what may be the strategic logic behind it. Actually, it's something we deep down know already anyway, right? I mean, it's just common sense.
Thank you. And that's the link you put up earlier. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Cool. Sean.
I'd like to respond to Gil's stray use of the term cyclical. I'm not sure. I would suggest that perhaps we could reframe, or hopefully, what is really going on here is that this is the sputtering emergence of a new order of sophistication and possibility in how humans interact with one another, rather than a return to a darker mode. I mean, hopefully that's the case, or let's reframe. I think a really powerful term and concept to keep in mind is post-partisan. That the powers that be maybe find value in keeping us divided, where us is we human entities who value a blue sky and drinkable water and a future safe for babies, while entities such as corporations, governments, AIs don't value any of those things. And so yeah, our brothers and sisters who wear the red hats and sit on the other side of that imaginary lane between the aisles, yeah, they value all those things too, and there are truths, there are some understandings. I think Jerry did a nice job of pointing out that it's that the system has crashed and failed and hasn't and isn't serving any of us, and the left has done just as poor a job as the right at actually accomplishing much in the last many presidential terms. Over. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Ken, hast thou words of rhyme or non-rhyme?
Non-rhyme.
Excellent.
Some of you may know Carolyn Forche. She wrote a amazing, she edited an amazing anthology of poems called Against Forgetting. And this is one she wrote herself. And since El Salvador is in the news, I thought this would be a good poem. It's called The Colonel. What you have heard is true. I was in his house. His wife carried a tray of coffee and sugar. His daughter filed her nails. His son went out for the night. There were daily papers, pet dogs, a pistol on the cushion beside him. The moon swung bare on its black cord over the house. On the television was a cop shell. It was in English. Broken bottles were embedded in the walls around the house to scoop the kneecaps from a man's legs or cut his hands to lace. On the windows there were gratings like those in liquor stores. We had dinner, rack of lamb, good wine. A gold bell was on the table for calling the maid. The maid brought green mangoes, salt, a type of bread. I was asked how I enjoyed the country. There was a brief commercial in Spanish. His wife took everything away. There was some talk then of how difficult it had become to govern. The parrots had low on the terrace. The colonel told him to shut up and pushed himself from the table. My friend said to me with his eyes, "Say nothing." The colonel returned with a sack used to bring groceries home. He spilled many human ears on the table. They were like dried peach halves. There is no other way to say this. He took one of them in his hands, shook it in our faces, dropped it into a water glass. It came alive there. I am tired of fooling around, he said. As for the rights of anyone, tell your people they can go fuck themselves. He swept the ears to the floor with his arm and held the last of his wine in the air. Something for your poetry, no? He said. Some of the ears on the floor caught this scrap of his voice. Some of the ears on the floor were pressed to the ground.
Appropriately intense for the moment.
Very dark.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you.
Against forgetting.
Mm.
This is happening today to American citizens, to people who have been denied due process, swept off the streets by men in masks, sent off to El Salvador.
Yeah.
Never to return.
Thank you. That's a sobering note to end on, but thank you all for a great call. I appreciate it. More soon, and let's be careful out there.